Hey everyone, Jim Coventry from Rotowire here, going over today's NFL news and notes from a fantasy football perspective. We are also going to talk about the Eagles passing attack. And the reason we bring that up is it was announced today that Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown will see reps in the preseason opener. So look, the Eagles made the big trade with the Titans to land A.J. Brown this offseason. I think the team just wants to give that duo a chance to get on the same page before the regular season begins. First, we talk about Jalen Hurts being drafted just outside the top 5 quarterbacks in average drafts. That goes right along with his fantasy production last year. Can he do more is the question. So we know he's going to be able to run the football, and that's a no-brainer. Great offensive line, great scheme. He has the ability to get a defense off balance because, again, mobile quarterbacks to the degree of Hurts will keep linebackers on their heels. So Jalen Hurts should be in good shape as a runner, but we want to know what he'll do as a passer. Well, he did make a significant jump in completion percentage. It's the only place he could go was up after his rookie year, but he was nearly a 60% completion rate last year. We don't think 60% is great, but based on the improvement from year 1 to year 2, it was very encouraging. Well, when the team brings in A.J. Brown, that really changes the dynamic of the offense. The main thing I want to point out is the best connection that Hurts had down the stretch was with Dallas Goddard. If you remember, over the last 5 games, including the playoffs, he had at least 90 yards in 3 of those 5 games, and he had a 72-yard game tossed in there as well. So he was on fire at that point. So what we learned too was a big target in the middle of the field tended to be the sweet spot for Hurts. So going out and getting A.J. Brown is a big deal because A.J. Brown not only can run those crossers, slants, and be a great target quick over the middle of the field, but he also has the ability to get downfield to beat the defense. So that is a great thing that he can work on. Now, I think the loser here is Devante Smith. The reason being that, again, big catch radius, middle of the field guys, right in the sweet spot for Hurts. Devante Smith isn't exactly that. He's a great player, great route runner. He can make a lot of things happen, but he's a small receiver, slight. They don't want to run him over the middle frequently. He barely weighs 170 pounds, if even that. You don't want him frequently in the middle of that traffic. So I think from a stylistic fit standpoint, Smith will have the occasional good game, but I don't think he's going to see consistent targets. Don't forget, this team is going to run the ball a lot. Now, A.J. Brown is being drafted just outside the top 12 receivers, and it's a bit of a tough sell. First of all, we know he's missed 7 games, and he's been ineffective and played partially in many other games. So reliability has been tough for A.J. Brown. Really, one of the best players out there. I call him Terrell Owens version 2.0. But the thing is, he takes those high contact hits. He's in the mix of being physical, and that's sometimes the price you have to pay. So there's concerns there. So when you're drafting at ADP, you're hoping for a season of health, but knowing he hasn't shown that since his rookie year. So that's important to understand. And then Dallas Goddard is going right around tight end 6. And honestly, again, I mentioned earlier, I think that middle of the field is where Hurts is going to live. And I think Dallas Goddard may not put up all those 90-yard games, or a couple more over 100 actually down the stretch, but I think he is a good bet to finish as a fair value at his ADP because he is an outstanding tight end who finally got his way in the NFL as a number 1 type tight end. Zach Ertz out of the way. So that's what my take on the passing is. I am fading Devonta Smith. He is being drafted about wide receiver 40, which that builds in some of the risk of target share, but I just don't know how much upside is there. Again, if this team is winning, they may run a lot as well. And Julia's here. Hey, Julia, thanks for joining in. Appreciate you. Yes, the Eagles are going to fly, and Nick Sirianni has a good situation on his hands. All right, let's talk about some job situations. Nahim Heinz. So earlier in the offseason, Frank Reich talked about how Nahim Heinz was going to be a big part of the game. He actually said, if I'm a fantasy football player, then I would have him on my team. And I know we hear some comments like that now and again. But nonetheless, Nahim Heinz, the quote today, Jeremy Fowler of ESPN reports, Heinz is expected to catch at least 60 passes. But that's not a major surprise. He's been in the league 4 years, and he's caught 63 passes in 2 of those 4 years. So that's not a huge deal. But here's the thing. Last year, I believe he was expected, Heinz was, to be a big part of the offense. But Carson Wentz had little interest in featuring his running backs as receivers. So I think it really hurt Nahim Heinz, other than dedicated calls that were going to him. Wentz was never going to be the guy to check down the Heinz. So I think with Matt Ryan here, Matt Ryan understands how coaching factors into being a winning offense. And when there are screenplays called, Matt Ryan is going to run the play as called when it works. And Matt Ryan also, look, he's an older quarterback. The offensive line was great in Indy. It's good now, but getting the ball out may be a good thing to preserve his health. Now, we're not questioning Jonathan Taylor. He's the featured running back, the number one. Heinz will get snaps. They could both be on the field at the same times. It's not like we're going to see Jonathan Taylor with 100% snap share. You might see 75, 80%, things like that. So Heinz will be on the field. And in the games they trail, he definitely will be utilized heavily there. He is a very good receiver. Indy has paid him. They view him as a valuable part of the team, and he's being drafted outside the top 40 running backs in fantasy. So to me, solid ADP, but I think, and the hedge, right? Here's the hedge. In best ball leagues, you don't have to decide what week he's going to go off. So if you play in these best ball leagues, that is optimal because Heinz may have 4 or 5 big games. But then if you're starting him in a managed lineup, you may start him in the week when the team's playing with a lead, running Jonathan Taylor, not throwing. He could get you a 3. So just understand, he is still useful in managed leagues, but more of a flex option. Next, Albert Okwuegbunam. So it was a lot of negative buzz on him in the early preseason, how, he just wasn't like working with the system as well as they liked. And Greg Dulcich was getting hype as being, a good receiver. Well, with the Tim Patrick injury, to me, it's pretty clear. They're going to have to use 2 tight ends more than they wanted. Okwuegbunam, Dulcich will both be on the field. But the good news today about Okwuegbunam is that Coach Nathaniel Hackett said that Okwuegbunam is becoming more comfortable in the offense, and Hackett's been moving him all over the formation, and that's what we want to hear. Because I mention this frequently. Russell Wilson, in my opinion, being a shorter quarterback, I believe that in his career, he has not frequently collected a lot of receptions in the middle of the field, in the short in the intermediate area. He's very good as a deep passer in the middle of the field, but not in that short and intermediate area. So that was a problem with the tight end, and why I don't believe Russell Wilson's had too much great success with regular tight ends that play in the middle of the field. By moving Okwuegbunam around, now that unlocks some opportunity for Russell Wilson to connect with his tight end. So that is good. Now, Okwuegbunam's ADP has dropped. He was earlier draft season being drafted in the top 12. He's like tight end 15 right now. So if he can claim a strong role in that offense, he could have a value at that ADP of tight end 50 because he is supremely talented. Dulcich, on the other hand, look, he's going to get some catches because when you look back, Noah Fant was a very talented tight end, and Okwuegbunam was cutting into Fant's workload. And based on the organization, to me, Dulcich is going to cut in Okwuegbunam's. So Okwuegbunam may not have the upside we like. So just understand that. All right, let's move on next. Josh Palmer and Jalen Guyton. So Daniel Popper of The Athletic, he's reporting that, as we've known, Josh Palmer is the number 3 receiver during the majority of camp. He's a first-team offensive player when they use their 3 receiver sets. And here's the rub. A lot of fantasy managers are upset that Jalen Guyton's not here. Jalen Guyton has more ability to stretch the field. Josh Palmer's a better tactician, but really not wanting to stretch the field. And one of the biggest concerns about Joe Lombardi and the coaching staff is that they have this big armed quarterback in Justin Herbert who should be able to air it out. And they were throwing the ball super short last year. And last year was the first year that Lombardi came in. So after the rookie year, when Herbert threw short, we thought that would get fixed, and it didn't. And I don't know, based on last year, if they're going to correct that. Well, based on the receivers they have with Palmer in there, they're going to be more likely to throw it shorter. Now, the team did talk about being able to deploy Mike Williams as a downfield threat more, and it is true. He doesn't have typical deep speed, but he's very good at getting open deep. And with his big body, he can win contested catches. So that would be their downfield element if they're going that way. But again, Justin Herbert's been just fine with poor coaching, make him throw short. But if they ever turn him loose, look out. All right, we're digging deep here. Eno Benjamin. So James Conner's expected, obviously, to see most of the backfield work. Last year, he had to deal with Chase Edmonds. Edmonds was ahead of Conner on the preseason depth chart, and he stayed there for a while. But now there really is little competition. We have Eno Benjamin, Darrell Williams, Keontae Ingram. I know Darrell Williams did fine with the Chiefs. Seeing light fronts, the screen game, he was a fit for them. It just worked out. But he honestly, I don't think he's going to do much of anything. He had a really bad offensive line. He's going from a great offensive line in Kansas City to one of the worst run blocking lines in the league. Conner makes it work because he's a battering ram. Darrell Williams is a little chancer. So anyway, Conner is going to be a big deal here. But back to Eno Benjamin. So a crazy quote from Cliff Kingsbury praising Benjamin, saying he would have never expected Benjamin to have come this far, which is a compliment, but it's a little backhanded. But nonetheless, Benjamin apparently now is emerging with his time with the team. He's learning, settling in, being a professional. And to me, he probably will have the first crack at being the backup here. I know they brought in Darrell Williams again. I'm not really concerned about that. But so anyway, Eno Benjamin is not a bad, very, very, very late game pick for those that expect James Conner could miss time. Again, he's missed 2 or 3 games in every year but one of his career. That's normal missed time. He had a 6-game absence 1 year, but otherwise he's been more durable than fantasy managers are giving him credit for. But again, Eno Benjamin is a good dart throw because he could get that job. Simi Fehoko from the Dallas Cowboys, drafted in the 5th round last year, mostly special team player, didn't play a lot in that way either, but he's been showing off this great athleticism in practices. Now, James Washington's done for a couple months. Michael Gallup, we're not counting on him to be around early in the season. Cowboys need receivers to step up. We love Jalen Tolbert. We think he's going to be a factor from day one. It's CeeDee Lamb, obviously, but there are 3 receiver sets they run. So Fehoko could become something. Now, you're not spending a draft pick on him in typical standard size leagues. You're keeping him in the waiver wire speed dial. If you're drafting in these 20-plus round drafts and you have nobody left, taking a flyer, not the worst thing in the world, but you're certainly not banking on him being a factor. But as the preseason goes on, stranger things have happened. Update on the Texans backfield. So, look, depth charts are weird, right? Some coaches do veteran deference. So we have Marlon Mack, Damian Pierce. They're considered the front runners. Rex Burkhead, the veteran. Well, right now, the depth chart for the Texans has Mack and Burkhead listed as number 1s, Pierce down the list beneath them. I just think this is typical veteran deference. That's all that is. But the positive camp reports have been about Mack and Pierce. And depending who you're reading, one is over the other, fine. Pierce is the more expensive one. He's going about a top 40 pick in ADP. Mack outside the top 55. Look, either one of them can win this. Mack's saying he's back to his pre-Achilles injury form where he averaged 4.4 and 4.7 yards per carry with the Colts. If he's back to that, he's reliable in pass pro. He's able to run pass routes. He can run. I think his veteran leadership could give him the first crack at the job. And if he plays well, he could hold it. So Mack at outside the top 55, that is a pick where if you make that and he starts, that's a jackpot. If Pierce doesn't get the job and you're spending a top 40 running back on him, pick on him, that's a little bit of a risk. But those who believe Pierce is the guy, then you have to do that because if he's a starter, again, that's a value as well. Julie, I'll get a couple of your questions. Let me finish the last couple of quick notes here, and then I'll answer those. So injuries. Devante Smith, we talked about the Eagles earlier. He has a groin injury. He missed 5 straight practices, but Coach Sirianni considers him day-to-day. So right now, nothing to report here. Melvin Gordon, he apparently missed Wednesday's practice with a foot injury. Coach Nathaniel Hackett said the foot has to be managed during camp, but as of right now, it's not enough of a report to make a definitive conclusion. So right now, again, if you're risk averse, then maybe, move Gordon down a bit. I think there's not enough information to do that yet, but we have to see what goes on over the course of time. And then Kadarius Toney, NewJersey.com's Daryl Slater said Toney was favoring his hamstring during Tuesday's practice. So that was yesterday. Well, yeah, whatever day you're listening to this. So we'll just say that. Although this is far from definitive news, in 11 practices, Toney's been limited in 4 of them. Now, maybe the team is limiting his reps. That's possible. Injuries last year, he missed quite a bit of time. But if it's not managing his time and there are little injuries that are keeping him out of practices, that's problematic for a player, as I said a moment ago, who missed time. I do like Toney as a mid-round target for upside because his ability to get open fast works extremely well with the offense that Brian Daboll wants to install and being a quick, reliable target for Daniel Jones. But again, he's got to be on the field to have fantasy value. And then sad news, Jakeem Grant, during practice, he tore his Achilles. So he was going to be a kick and a punt returner per the team's depth chart. And that was going to be his main role with the Browns. Unfortunately, I hope he'll heal up quickly, but he is done for the year. Hopefully he comes back strong next year. Love watching some Jakeem Grant. All right, now I want to get to Julia's questions, but thank you for listening today. Julia, you have, let's see, three-headed running back monster, Sanders, Gainwell, Scott are going to carry the Eagles. So here's the deal. So Miles Sanders, if fantasy managers look at his yards per carry, they've seen it's gone up in his 3 years, and that's a positive. But if we go beneath the surface, we notice the last 2 years he played 12 games each, and we saw his carries. I'm going to guess here. I want to say it went from like 190 to 160. I think I'm real close on that. But he lost 30 carries from the second to his 30 touches from his second to his third season. It's been very apparent that the team is limiting his workload. Why? Here's the deal. We know his yards per carry went up, when also his yards per reception has gone down. But here's the reason. He's inconsistent. What he does is he'll cut too many runs to the outside, and what will happen is he'll have negative runs. As opposed to taking the 3 yards as blocked, he'll get a 1 or a 0. And the coaches hate that. The coaches want to see you run the play as called. It's okay to take 2 or 3 yards if it's there. And he doesn't consistently do that. So his numbers are good, but his consistency is not what an NFL team wants. Kenny Gainwell showed very well as a receiver in his rookie year. And matter of fact, I want to say in every game he had at least 23 snaps, I believe. He had at least 13 PPR points. That was impressive. I think he was also using the red zone a bit. So I think he's going to have a receiving role and a red zone role, but I think there is an opportunity for him to take away early down work as well. Sanders will still get some. Sanders is the most expensive piece of this in fantasy drafts, but I think his inconsistency is going to hurt him here. And let's see. And Boston Scott, I think we learned this last year. When the other backs are healthy, he will be deactivated frequently. If they have injuries, he'll come in. And I think that role isn't changing. He's good when he plays, but I don't think he'll be part of the healthy backfield. Next one. How do I think Philly's O-line will hold up against the Dallas defensive front? Having a mobile quarterback changes everything. So you can do so many things with boot action, misdirection in the run game, misdirection with the quarterback in the run game, and the offensive line is not going to have a problem dealing with Dallas. They have 3 linemen who are still elite, and a couple of them struggle in the run game, but they're better at pass pro than they are in run protection. But anyway, again, with scheme, they really can take Dallas out of the equation there. And A.J. Brown on quick hitters. Dallas can't afford to be too thin and blitz too often because between Goddard and A.J. Brown, they could pay heavily. And also if Hurts breaks contain. So there we go there. What else? Yeah, Hurts is going to run. And DeVonta's the one who takes the value. And A.J. Brown, here's the thing we learned about A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown can get it done on 6 targets. He's one of the only receivers in the league who, if he gets 6 targets, he can have a big day for you. So, and that's kind of what they're banking on. They're banking on Hurts' big arm. They're banking on the run after the catch. And they brought him in. I mean, they obviously had a clear plan, paying all that money in draft capital for him. And then, thanks about Mac. Yeah, Mac is undervalued. And yeah, I do think he has an opportunity. And you're right. He was scoring. His yards per carry was strong. And he was a good player. And if he's back to the way he was, yeah, I think he's a great buy late in fantasy drafts. All right, everyone. Thanks for your time and have a great rest of your day.